Welcome to the Inspiring Victory Show, where we help you double your business, double your impact, and change the world. I'm really excited because today I have one of my favorite people around here, Walt Hampton. And Walt has an interesting background. He went to Cornell Law School. Yeah, really impressive. And he also eventually became a managing partner for 30 years in a law firm that allowed him to do trial law and see businesses in every possible shape and form and every problem and every plus that could be. And now he's this like soothsayer. He's this, crystal ball guy that can tell you everything that your company can be and everything that you need to avoid as you control the beast that is your business as it grows and grows and grows and grows. So Walt's seen pretty much everything imaginable. He's got a company called Summit Success International, which is a global company that helps businesses and business owners that want to be high profit and high impact and have fun as well. Imagine that. So we're really glad to have you here. Thank you for being with us, Walt.
Oh,
Lovely to see you.
Sarah, such a gift to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So you've seen a lot. I know you've seen everything, and you've had times in your businesses that were tough, and you've had times that went really smoothly. And you have that unique perspective, that crystal ball perspective of having seen everybody else's business as a trial lawyer and growing two major businesses, now three, with the press and publishing company you guys have as well. What is the number one thing that you think business owners need to know in order for their business to really flourish and for them to flourish too?
The most important thing to start with is to have a destination that you want to get to. And it might not be the ultimate destination, but to have a clear target about what you want to create. Have a very clear idea as to not only the impact and the import that you want to have as an entrepreneur, as a business professional, but also what the life is that you want to create for yourself, for your team, for your family, and ultimately what that impact is that you want to have in the world. Clarity is what you need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it makes such a huge difference. I think once you have clarity on where you want to go and what you want to accomplish, and again, from that perspective of what do we want internally and what do we want for ourselves, what do we want for our people, as well as what do we want for the world? What are we trying to do and how are we trying to help people? That's a beautiful way of putting it. And what a lovely match of what's, that win-win, what's best for us as a company and what's best for our clients and for the world. Why are we doing this? Yeah. How do you, when you assess a company, what do you look for first? What's the first thing you check out?
Well, always, whether it's a building or a business, it's the foundation. If a company comes to us that's grappling with any kind of challenges, it's often foundational issues. It's going back to the beginning and examining what they put in place from the get-go and whether they've ignored those foundational elements. So that's key. And then from there, looking at systems and processes and people and infrastructure and all of that. But it really starts with an evaluation of foundational elements because over time, there are cracks in the foundation.
Well, you start adding, 50 floors to a building without changing the foundation is going to be an issue. And I think that's where that does come in as people start to get overwhelmed by it getting bigger and bigger and bigger and those cracks become more obvious the larger it gets. What are the foundational things that you think are most important? Can you give me three that every business should really be paying attention to?
Yeah. So I just did a workshop last week and I used the story, it's an older story now, but a memorable one of Enron. And Enron was this beacon of hope and possibility in the world, but it lost its North Star. It lost its vision, mission, purpose, and values. And those are where many companies can go off course, losing track of their vision, mission, purpose, and values. And from that place, Enron just began to double down on the deceptions and the lies and the troubled numbers. and ultimately imploded on itself, and imploded not on itself, not from some outside force. As a litigator, I know that there are plenty of times when the outside forces come at you, but it imploded on its own because it had lost those key elements.
That's really well put. What's the best way to look at that foundation? What's the best way? What are there questions that a business owner should be asking as they're starting to grow more and more about that vision, about that mission, about that purpose?
Well,
What do you ask?
so number one, I think it's hard to ask in a vacuum. It's why someone has a Sarah Victory to work with, frankly. I think it's really important to have a sounding board for those, because caught in our own minds, entrepreneurs, we've got crazy minds from time to time. And it's easy for all that to get messed up. And so having someone that you can trust and get out of your head, and that could be advisors on your team, but oftentimes it's someone on the outside who can look in and to see it and to help reflect back whether you're still on course or not.
And if some of those foundational pieces need to be revised or clarified, maybe, you're not the same person you were 5 or 10 or 20 years ago when you developed those, your team may not be the same team. And so sometimes I think they need to be, even if though they're really pretty on the wall, they may need to be revisited. I walked into a company, I was doing a speech for their organization. It was a few years ago. And I walked in the front door and these two lovely gals were sitting right up front. They were the receptionists. And I said, hello, nice to see you. And I looked behind them and they had the longest mission statement I've ever seen in my life was behind them. It was like 47 words long. It went on, on and on, but it was right up there. And I said, wow, you guys really love your mission statement. That's amazing. And they said, what mission statement?
Right.
And I said, right behind you. And they went, oh. They literally thought that was wallpaper. And I could see it. It was sort of indicative of what I see from so many companies, and that we write these things that sound very fancy, but they don't really necessarily mean anything. And they haven't been integrated into absolutely everybody living and breathing and experiencing and buying into those things in a real way. And I think your Enron story really exemplifies that. And I think you're right. I think it's having that outside perspective. I mean, sometimes we're dealing with very smart, these are CEOs of some, small, medium, and large businesses. They're very smart. Enron, I'm sure they had loads of people that went to Cornell, or your wife went to Harvard. So we'll make sure we include her too. But where again, lots of smart people, but brain surgeons aren't allowed to do their own brain surgery. At a certain point, you need some outside perspective. And I think that's what you bring to the companies that are fortunate enough to get to work with you. And I think that's what I bring too, is being able to see things that other people that may be invisible to the people that are there. Interesting. What else?
I just wanted to pick up on the thread that the example you used of the company with the mission statement on the wall that they thought as wallpaper. I think one of the things that happens in the dynamics of growing a business is that maybe we maintain that idea of our vision, mission, purpose, and values, but we're not keeping it front and center for our people. It is rare in our
It's very easy.
It is rare in our company that we are not speaking about that almost every week to our people, to our vision, mission, purpose, and values, to connect the dots for our people, not only for our structural growth, for our financial growth, but we know it's axiomatic, particularly for Gen Y, Gen Z, that vision, purpose, mission is what drives engagement, which drives productivity and profit. And so from a very selfish perspective, I want my people, I want the companies that I serve to want their people to connect the dots, because that's rocket fuel in growth. And so,
Ooh,
it's
rocket
not,
fuel and growth. Oh, I love that. So that's rocket fuel and growth. Absolutely true. I think people love to be a part of a mission. I mean, think about the people that went, that figured out how to get to the moon. I mean, the passion that they had of how are we going to get there. And now maybe we'll go farther and end up in Mars or Pluto or whatever those things are. Oh, I love that. That is
and that
rocket
was
fuel.
and that was
And that's the fuel that
decades.
that was
Yes.
decades ago. Yeah. And it took them decades to get to that goal. And I think it's the fuel that we as founders, owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs, whatever stage your business is in, I think it's a fuel that got us going and keeps us going. But yeah, are we as good at making sure that's incorporated with everybody as we possibly can? Yeah, that particular company, they were lovely people. And the two owners they had a huge organization and it was very well run. And they were just terrific. But when I told them that, they were sort of horrified. They just didn't have perspective to know that that
Hmm.
was what was happening. And it was interesting. We came up with a plan where we just simply said, every one of these big meetings, reward people for coming up with a way to connect what they were doing, their division was doing, their team was doing, when they saw somebody else doing something, if they reward them for tying it to the company values. So you're not always layering these values onto others. You're getting them to embody them and rewarding them for the fact that their team has embodied these particular values. And that worked really, really well. And we also reduced that mission statement down to like 8 words.
Yeah.
That was the end of that. But, but it is interesting that when you think about it, are we doing, and I think about it in my own business, are we doing as good a job as we possibly can of keeping those values at the front and at the forefront of our business, and not risking being, not necessarily the downfall of an Enron, but even just the erosion of those fundamental beliefs, even in small ways. That little slippery slope is a big deal. Big deal.
Yeah.
And
We say in our,
everybody loses confidence really quickly, and
yeah,
should
we say in our company, how we do anything is how we do
do
everything.
everything.
Yeah.
I agree.
But
I love that.
there's
I've heard you say that before. I like it. Yeah.
there's one other element that I think may be valuable to just name in the space here, which is that the impact that we're making in the world is also fuel for us.
Yeah.
So one of the things
Nice.
we talk about all of the time are examples of customers or clients that we've made a difference for, so that there's, our people are hearing tangible, are seeing tangible fruits, rewards of what they're doing, even if they're, part of a marketing team or social media team, that they're, oh, we got to do that.
And this
And
was the end result of that.
this
It's
was
not
at
just,
this,
yeah, it helps somebody.
and
Mhm.
that, for
Mhm.
certainly for impact driven companies like those that we serve, it makes a difference to our team to know that that impact has been made through the work that we've done. And we create those ripples in the world that often we can't see if we're in our own little silos. But that brings a
Yeah,
team together. That drives growth. That's rocket fuel too. So I
that's
think,
brilliant.
for us, it's always about keeping not only our North Star visible, but it's also about keeping it visible for our team and allowing our team a view of what they're actually doing in the world.
What kind of impact is this really happening? And sometimes it's those smaller impacts that people get the most excited about. It's not necessarily we just closed a $50 million deal or something. Sometimes it's those, the little email or the text you get from a client saying, you really changed our business, or, you fixed a problem I've had for 5 years, or I've really wanted a dream team, and, you guys have found that for me, or whatever it is. Some smaller thing that is big to them, that we tend to just, we'll just slide by that. How do we celebrate more of those things? How do we incorporate more of our team into celebrating those things and keeping those in the forefront? Well,
I love the term celebrate and mark, because those of us who are high achievers are really bad at that. We're
oh my
bad at
gosh,
it, and our
horrible.
teams So Ann and
I'm,
I mean, you
yeah,
know, my business
I'm
partner.
working so hard at that, but yeah, I wasn't raised to celebrate anything. We didn't celebrate. We just, and again, high achievers are like, I did it now, I've got, wait, this is only goal one. I have 12 more. And yeah, so how do, that's one, yeah, it's one thing I've been focusing on. Well, I've had my coach
Yeah.
giving me that advice for some years. How do we do it though? What's your
Yeah. Well,
recommendation?
I'll
Because
tell
you're
you,
smart.
so first of all, an example, Ann and I, as you know, are high altitude mountaineers. We've climbed 4 of the 7 summits together, and we had worked
Wow.
on Denali, Mount McKinley, Denali. We had made 3 attempts on it before we were successful. It had been a
Wow.
lifelong goal of mine since I was 15 years old. Took me, 35 or 40 years to achieve the goal. And it was like, great, check. What's next? I mean, we do. I
Wow.
mean, literally, it was weeks before we said we stood on the highest spot in North America together at 2 in the morning, under the Alaskan midnight sun. After trying this, on in the Arctic for 28 days after the third expedition, and we just checked the box and went on.
What's the next goal? Yeah.
It's so,
It's
but that's what we
It's
do.
2:50. It's 2:15, buddy. We got a new
I
goal.
I know that's
Oh,
what we
yeah.
do
And
in
it's
our.
not healthy though. And our
It's
culture promotes that.
It does. And so, when
Mhm.
we do planning with the people that we're getting to the point where we're going to be doing a lot of yearly planning for the
Yeah.
clients that we serve is um,
Yeah.
one of the what are the magic moments that you want to create in the year ahead? What magic
Nice.
moments do you want to create this year intentionally?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
with the wins, the goals you've set, how will you celebrate those? Let's get really clear
Yeah.
on how we will celebrate those goals. Because if we're not intentional about it, we blow by them.
I am so incredibly honored to have you as a part of the Inspiring Victory tribe at the Inspiring Victory show. Please do us a favor. We really need your help. Please like, subscribe, share, write a comment. It makes a huge difference with how many people we can reach here at the Inspiring Victory Show, and it makes a big difference to me personally. I want to make sure that we're providing content to as many people as we possibly can so they can grow and succeed. So we'd love to have you continue your membership here at the Inspiring Victory Show. It's free. Helping us out costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference in how many people we can help. So double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And thank you so much for being a part of this extraordinary community. Thank you. And what I've also found is there's two things to celebrating things. One is, well, three. One, it marks it kind of, brands it into the company culture and into your psyche and soul. Also, what I love about celebrating is I really, truly have seen what you celebrate, you get more of. What you celebrate, you get more of. And I've started forcing my clients to celebrate things with their team or on their own or however they do that. And they have to send me, I demand photographic proof now. Because
Yes,
otherwise, they, oh yeah, I
beautiful.
celebrated. I'm like, what? How can I see? And now
Yeah.
it's like, well, they went to a Broadway play and I get a photograph of that. Or one gal took her entire team, bought out a movie theater and they all went to a movie that they all voted on.
Mhm.
And she did that. And sometimes they're small things, we took an hour and we talked about how proud we were of all of those things. But, and I think that the third piece to it is that it avoids burning out your people. Because if
Oh
you're
yeah.
never celebrating anything, I know for me, if I never celebrate things, which because I wasn't trained to and our culture doesn't promote it, and my bad, I just hadn't learned that skill.
Mm.
I'm burning myself out, but I'm also burning my people out because they're not
Yes.
getting to stop and celebrate. So we've started to add things like, everybody gets a vacation day off to choose it whenever they like to celebrate this thing.
Mhm.
Or everybody gets to take their now we have everybody gets to take their birthday off to celebrate
Mhm.
on us. And so
Yeah.
we're trying to find ways for them to celebrate in general and for us to celebrate within a company. But it is an ongoing struggle, even though I know the power of it and you do. Any other strategies that we should be aware of for improving the culture of our company or ingraining some of those things?
So yes, I want to go there, but I also want to pick up that burnout thread because
Oh,
that's
yeah,
so
sure. So
important.
important. And you've been
Um,
there, you know what it's
well,
like.
I grew up in a law firm culture where, you worked 80 hours a week if you were working half time. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so, um,
a tough
but
culture.
there's another element around that celebration that I just want to pick up from a few minutes ago, which is if
Hmm.
you've had a big victory, you've created a new piece of construction that's going to house a great not-for-profit, or to actually incorporate those people into the celebration as well. There's some interesting research. It came out of, I believe, out of fundraising at Ivy League schools, that when
You-
that when the student fundraiser would just call up and say, "Hey, Sarah, give me some money," um, that converted a whole lot less than the fundraiser saying, "Hey, I'm here, Sarah, because I grew up with a single parent and I went to a public school and I was never going to have, but there was an alumni who gave a scholarship, somebody like you who gave money to the school," and making it personal. So
Yeah,
when we bring in those outside elements to the celebration as well,
right.
it
There's a
provides a different,
human component to that too.
yes,
And then you get the power of myth and the power, as Joseph Campbell would say, the power of myth and the power of story, which we don't go to.
it's
It's
such
a
a
lot more
driver.
interesting to go to a movie in here than it is to read a bunch of stats and facts. I mean, you could say, well, this will allow us to give, 2% more people scholarships this year, yawn. But again, that story that you told was really powerful. But I like the idea that you said we're incorporating those other people and those other elements into that celebrating. That's an interesting way of putting it. I love that.
Story. You have heard,
Oh,
I
yeah.
have heard thousands, if not more, elevator pitches. Thousands.
Me too.
I
And
remember,
you and I have probably written a lot of them, right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but I
Make them better.
remember one of them.
Which one? Tell me.
So I'm at this networking event, and it was one of those where I was going to be speaking, but it was one of those arduous ones where everybody had a chance to give their 2-minute elevator pitch. And I'm thinking, I'm going to die.
3 hours later, you're
Yeah.
waiting to get on stage and speak. But at least
So
you
this,
know what everybody in the room does for a
I
living,
know.
if you're lucky. Yeah.
This one guy stands up. He said, Muriel was 65 years old when he came to see us. And she had taken care of her husband in the final years of his life. He died a very horrible death from cancer. And she was in her family home. And she didn't know how she was going to be able to stay there because there were so many final expenses associated with it. And she didn't have any money. And she was going from place to place to place to see how she could afford to stay in her home. And finally, she came to us and we were able to create a financing package that will take care of her for the rest of her life. I'm Joe Petrowski, that was his name, from Right Track Financial, and he sat down.
Yay, Joe. And it's the power, you're right, it's the power of the
It
story.
was the
It's the power
story.
of the story.
I
It was the
remember
story.
the story of that
And
15 years
it has an
later.
actual in only 2 minutes, it has an actual beginning, a middle, and an end. And it has a big benefit in there
Yeah,
to almost anybody that would want what he sells. It shows he cares.
it
Yeah,
was
it's
the power
brilliant.
of story. It
Our
is the
story.
power of
Yeah.
story. And
But not just
he
not
ran a
just
big, yeah,
meandering story about,
no,
well, we have clients that,
yeah,
are from this country and we have clients from that sector. And I mean, that's
yeah.
a story too. But again, there's a human element. And anytime you do a story, I know from my theater background, anytime you have a story, you want to, bring in each one character at a time
I
and
know,
give them a soul and give them a
I
personality,
know,
which he did with Muriel.
I, I know.
Well, of course, I'm preaching to the choir.
It
You're a
was
motivational
brilliant.
speaker. I like to
It
add, this is
was,
for
it
everybody.
was
It's
brilliant.
everybody else, not you. Yeah, it's not for you. Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
love that. I love
yeah.
that. And there was a formula. I think Patricia Fripp came up with it, and I kind of riffed on it myself, but it was a formula where you would say, how, and then you would say, well, and then you'd say, and the result is. And what the whole idea was that you would say, how certain types of people have, a certain profile of people have a
Mhm.
certain problem or have a certain desire. Well, we do. And the result is, which kind of forces you to put a benefit in there, but it makes it
Mhm.
into an automatic story. And so I was helping this one gal. She had an accounting firm she'd had for forever. And she started opening a couple of branches. And we were trying to find like a 30-second commercial that she could use, but that other people could use
Mhm.
as as well. And so we were talking about how we were going to do this with all the salespeople and everything. And she said, I don't know, I go to cocktail parties and I go to networking events and I say I'm an accountant and people like turn and say, gee, where's the dip? I mean, I was like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. She goes, people think accountants are boring. We're not boring. We're really not boring. I was like, you are not boring, honey. Don't you worry. You're not boring by any way, shape, or form. And I said, well, tell me what you do. And it was sort of the same concept.
Mhm.
And she said, well, she goes, I get these entrepreneurs that come to me, they dump shoe boxes full of receipts on my desk. And she goes, well, and I can tell you, I can tell you about Jose. He came in, he dumped shoe boxes full of receipts on my desk. He was 2 years behind on his
Mhm.
taxes. And she said, and within 3 weeks, we had beautiful tax returns. We sent them off and he was ecstatic because the result was
Mhm.
he was able to have not only just have his tax done and have all that peace of mind, he was
Mhm.
also able to save so much money because we were
Mhm.
organizing all that for him. He actually sent us flowers. He was so happy about it. And I went, oh, but I
Yeah.
mean, again, so it doesn't have to be, I always say stories don't have to be, I was crawling through the desert on hands and knees with
I know.
scorpions crawling up my leg as I,
Yeah.
had fallen out of
Yeah.
the airplane or something.
That's
It
so
can just be,
so last year.
yeah, but that's so true. So passe, honey. Yeah, it can just be, one specific is always better than some, big
Yeah,
generalities. We
no.
help lots of people save money on their
Yeah.
taxes, yawn, but
Yeah.
Jose, most of us can identify with
Yeah.
Jose who are not, especially not detail people, which are the people she loved to help. So yeah, I think there's a great
Yes.
power in that. And
Yeah.
you're tying your values to the story. And that we're going back to what you said originally,
Yeah.
your purpose, your values,
Hmm.
the mission, why you do
Hmm.
what you do, who you're trying to help, your
Hmm.
ideal target market. I always tell people
Yes.
never, if there are people who are speakers who also do other things, I remember Dan Kennedy, the great marketing guru, used to say speaking's
Hmm.
kind of a lousy business, but it's a great business to build a business from. If you do other
Yes.
things like consulting and training and whatever,
Hmm.
if you're standing on stage and you give examples and stories of things that you don't want to do on the back end. Like
Hmm.
I had this one gal and she said, well, I don't do the financial stuff anymore, but people keep coming up to me and asking me for that. And I said, maybe it's because you told 8 stories about the financial stuff in your 90-minute speech. Could be.
Right.
So all we did, you switch it out
Yeah.
to things you actually want more of and that are
Exactly.
your current passion.
Yeah.
But stories are, yeah, they're a big passion for
Yeah.
me because,
Well,
those of us who are speakers and
yeah.
communicators, it's important.
Well, and we both know, story
Ah,
brands, story
it, yeah.
driven companies.
Yeah, I think that, I mean,
Yeah.
even things like, Bombas socks, we're
Yeah.
so passionate about our fabulous socks that every pair we buy, we're going to give
Yeah.
one to
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
in need because
Yeah.
they discovered that the number
Yeah.
one requested item in
Hmm.
homeless shelters was socks.
Yeah.
And of course, where am I buying my socks for myself and my husband?
Yeah.
Bombas socks, right? I mean, I could get them a lot. Are there to get in Europe? They're not easy. Yeah. Okay. So tell me, what are the things that you also, I know you were a lawyer, you were managing partner, you went in and you saw every kind of corporate issue that
Mhm.
people squabbling over things,
Mhm.
getting people in trouble costs a fortune to go do a lawsuit. What is the number one or the top two or three things that people need to watch out for in their business that could get them into hot water?
Mhm.
I mean,
Communication.
really? I
Mhm.
wouldn't have thought you would pick that. Well, tell me more about that. That's a great answer.
Well, it's the number one thing that gets lawyers into trouble is they don't return their phone calls.
Oh, pet peeve of all, yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody
The
wants
number
their
one thing
on their
that
phone or
frustrates
whatever.
people about healthcare is they don't get their phone calls returned.
Mhm.
The thing, I mean, people, and I don't care what size business we're talking about, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. People do business with people. Josh was my banker when he was at People's Bank. And when Josh moved, I moved my business. And when Josh moved again, I moved my business because my
Okay.
relationship was with Josh. Communication, connection, relationship matters. And
Mhm.
when we're early
Trust.
in our business, we do a pretty good job at it.
Mhm.
But as we get busier, it's easier to offload it or give it to someone else to do. Relationships still matter. I was working with a leader
Mhm.
at a not-for-profit. Steve, he's brilliant, become a dear friend, runs a $50 million not-for-profit. his board early on had a real problem with him because he was an intro like me. I'm an introvert. Introverts like to go quiet, and he liked to hide out in his office. And there's a whole leadership training model called leadership by walking around. And when I was able to get Steve out of his office, it wasn't rocket surgery. It
Rocket surgery? Okay, I like that.
it wasn't rocket
Wasn't rocket
surgery.
surgery.
Is to
That's
go
awesome.
out and to communicate,
Yeah.
to connect with his
Mm,
people. But it's
yeah.
also about connecting with the primary relationships in your world to stay as a human being, to
Mm,
return your calls, to do the little things that matter for people.
yeah.
And so that communication is a huge area where people let that slide or outsource it. And it's so core, regardless of the
Yeah.
size of the business we grow.
It's interesting because I used to worry when I was younger about making about making a mistake with a client, even a small mistake with a client. And now I'm less worried about that and more worried that they feel heard because it's not if we're going to make a mistake with a client we have for a decade, it's when. I mean, there's going
Mhm,
to be something that goes wrong,
mhm,
even if it's just from their perspective. And
mhm,
I'm starting to see that usually people just want to be heard. They don't want to hear you defend how great, we really did awesome. You just don't believe us. I think people want to feel as though you're really trying, you're doing your best, you're in it with them and you care about them. And how do you make people continue to feel special and cared for? You don't want to be you don't want to be the spouse that's like, I said I loved you at the
mhm,
altar. What, you expect
mhm,
that like more than once in 50
mhm.
years? It's how do you keep on making them feel heard and feel special, which is
Heard
an
and
ongoing challenge.
heard and seen, heard
Well,
and
yeah,
seen,
yeah, I'm
which
very
is
auditory. Yeah, I'm very auditory, so I'm always
yeah,
it's always there.
but I
But
mean
see,
but you have
same concept. Yeah, yeah,
you have in this venue every time we've ever connected, there's a connection.
yeah.
You have a presence, and people want our presence as leaders in the lives of other people can be one of the greatest gifts we give.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I mean, I think it's how do we lift people up? How do we continue to be an inspiration to ourselves and to others? Yeah, I love
Yes.
that. I love
Yeah.
that. I had one CEO who was very introverted. And introverts are great because, I'm somewhat people always think I speak, you speak to 10,000 people at a time. You can't possibly be introverted. Yes, I am. Very. I spend the majority of my time at home just, hanging out with Steve
Hmm.
and all of that. But um, he was particularly introverted, like you said, would hide out in his office and just kind of delegate things
Hmm.
and only talk to two different people. And I also figured out that he was taking this like hour-long walk every day in this beautiful neighborhood in the Pacific Northwest. Gorgeous. And I said, why don't you meet somebody at the front door at the 45-minute mark and
Hmm.
meet somebody different every other day? It doesn't be every day, but
Hmm.
maybe every day. Meet somebody and do the last 15-minute walk around the little park right in front
Beautiful.
with somebody. And so he
Beautiful.
started picking like one of the custodians or which he told me he got the best advice for his business, not from the big fancy consultants, not from his VPs, from the custodian who saw what the customers were doing that nobody else saw. So again, it might be a VP one day, it might be the custodian the next day, it might be somebody who started 2 weeks before, the day after that. But he got it to where it was pretty much every single day he was spending
Mm.
that last 15 minutes. So they got out, they got a little walk, which was
Gold.
healthy. And
Gold.
yeah, and I thought, and it changed everything. And they stopped thinking of him as this sort of cold, heartless guy that didn't talk to anybody, which
Hmm.
wasn't true at all. He cared more than I think anybody had ever met. But it opened things up for him, and he found that it was kind of the highlight of his day, which that was I thought
I
quite
love that, Sarah.
miraculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's how do you do that and how do you maintain that? And we have a lot of virtual people, and I'm always traveling, so I'm always in some crazy
Right.
country in, Mexico or Europe or wherever.
Hmm.
And so we've got people from, Hawaii, California, Canada, United States, Mexico, all over Europe. We have a lot of our people we source from the Philippines who are amazing. Leslie, as you know, brings us these terrific people. And it's, finding ways to do that virtually has been tricky for me, but I realized that the same principles have applied. And so I've been doing the same thing. Hey, can I get you for 15 minutes? Or hey, let's, even if it's just nowadays, you get a lot of people that don't really want to talk to you, they want to text. I'm like, I can go with that. So I'll, WhatsApp them or text them and say, hey, how'd it go with the family event? Or how was the
Mhm.
wedding? Or, what's going on? And so making an attempt, because it is a little trickier when you aren't physically around people. And now that we're all, I mean, everybody's working from, with at least
Somewhere. Yeah,
some remote.
somewhere.
Yeah. Most people are working with at least some remote people. So
I say the
I
rules.
found I had to really focus. I
Yeah.
have to really focus on that. I still
I, I,
do.
I
It's
say
hard.
the rules of a relationship are not suspended in the virtual world.
So true.
They are not
Yeah.
suspended.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. So true. All right. Well, if you had, you have vast amounts of experience in every possible way. And I love the spirit of you and the values that you have and
Mm,
just the way that your mind works is always just such a
mm.
miracle. And, and I mean, you're a motivational speaker. So I know how articulate you are. What would be the one bit of favorite advice that you would have to an up and coming business owner, professional speaker, author,
Mhm.
all the things that you are, or attorney, your background? What would be the one bit of really great advice you would have for them before we?
Create lots of white space for yourself. I have I have
Look at
a
you.
client who came to me, was growing a grew an extra just a mega law firm. Um,
Mm,
but he was just everything was falling off his plate, and mistakes were happening, and people were leaving. And I said, Sean, I said,
mm,
screenshot your calendar for me while we're talking here. And he did, and he shot it, and it was. I said, this is beautiful. It's red and it's green and it's yellow and it's purple and it's magenta. I said, where's the white? He said, what do you mean? I said, where's the white space? He said,
mm,
this space in between the appointments. And he said, I didn't know I needed that. I said, well, I'm a trial lawyer. You're, a state lawyer. I often run over on things, and my days can be really long. And, if you're always running behind, you're never going to have any time for you to catch up and actually to rest and reflect and actually become a more strategic thinker.
mm.
And so having white space in our lives and in our calendars for sure, but having white space in our lives, some of the greats in business that you and I have studied, they create lots of downtime for themselves where they can go to quiet because in the silence we can hear.
Mm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. One of my favorite clients that I had years ago when I was kind of first getting going. We were having lunch one time and he said, this is going to sound weird. He said, but at a certain point, if you get paid for the quality of your thoughts, the more vacations you take, the more money
Yeah.
you will make.
Yes. A
And
hundred
he had the
percent.
biggest self-made business to this day. I think it's the biggest self-made starting from zero business that I know of. But he said, and he said he called it his Einstein theory. He said Einstein was famous for, they took him a month of just puttering around Princeton to come up with one great idea. He felt like you had to kind of ruthlessly protect that white space you're talking about. And he felt that that was super important. Because I said, what is the secret of your success? And he basically he didn't say white space, which is a great way of putting that, but he said it's ruthlessly protect that white space.
Amen. Amen. Because as we grow in business, maybe in the beginning when we're 100 or 200,000, we're doing all of the things. But as we
Right.
grow in business, we are being paid to think, and we cannot think
And problem
uh,
solve. Yeah.
and problem solve.
and
And
and be the visionary. You
and
shift from the
you
doer to the visionary for the company,
and
and that means you need more time to think up the vision than you do to be doing the doing. And if you stay in, and I fall and prey to this myself, I'll just keep doing and doing and doing and doing, and then I hit burnout pretty darn quick if I'm not careful.
yes,
But you have to accept, you have to start letting go and letting people, your brilliant people around you, do their jobs
I
brilliantly,
know.
and you need to shift to being that visionary. We actually changed my title last year to Chief Visionary Officer,
So beautiful. Yeah.
because I really think my real passion nowadays is helping, be the architect of somebody else's dreams for their company,
Yes.
creating the
Yeah.
vision for them, expanding the vision, improving the vision
Yeah.
for them, and being the visionary for our own company. So I
Yeah.
think we all should be chief visionary officers unless we want to be in the doing of it every moment for the rest of our careers.
Yeah.
White space. I'm going to remember that. That was really, really, really
Yeah.
well put. Yes, I'm going to start putting an extra hour, half hour between meetings.
Oh, it makes such a difference.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, I've been doing it, but not as, I thought you remind me that not as much as I should. I think we all need to really keep vigilant again about, protecting the white space and protecting that mental cutie. I think we're raised from when we're really little to think that the more you work, the more you do, the more successful you'll be. But at a certain point, it becomes the reverse. What got you there is what will not get you to the next level. The next level requires that you are doing less and thinking more. And that from a doer culture and from a, don't be a human being, be a human doing, as Wayne Dyer used to say, make it the opposite. Don't stop being a human doing and become a human being.
Yes.
Our culture does not promote that, but it is super, super important.
Yes.
So lovely. Yes. Any other last bit of wisdom for our viewers and listeners that you would like to give them?
My best wisdom to leave them with is that wonderful quote from Steve Jobs that he said, I look in the mirror every day and I ask myself, if this was the last day of my life, would I want to keep on doing what I'm doing now? And if the answer is no for too many days in a row, I know that I need to do something different. Keep revisiting where you are. Keep asking that question.
Wow, that's an act of real bravery and candor with oneself and with your business. Because again, it's what's back to Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. Like, where is that for you? And where's the bliss for your company? Because that is going to be the ultimate gift to your clients and your customers.
And to the world.
And to the world, and making the world a better place, one customer, one client, and one you at a time. Brilliant. That is absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you for being with us, Walt. I always love spending time with you. You're such a genius. My gosh, thank you for sharing all of that wisdom and that you've worked so hard to gain over these years. And I will look forward to seeing you again. And thank you for listening and watching at home. We know we are very appreciative of you. So glad you're a part of the Inspiring Victory Show and the Inspiring Victory Tribe. And remember, do something brave every day. We both believe in you, and we know you can do anything you set your mind to. Thank you for being with us today. Have a great week. Thank you.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Meritess Bott of Bott & Associates.
I'm so honored to get to be with our wonderful sponsor for the Inspiring Victory Show. And I want to make sure you know a little bit more about her and about what they do, because I think it'd be really helpful for all of us as business people and just in our personal lives. Meritess does a lot of speaking, as many of you probably know, but I love one of the speeches that she's famous for, which is A Generous Legacy, the power of future-proofing your business and your personal life. And that's really what you are all about. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you. And can you give us an example of somebody who's come to you and how you were able to help them that might be able to help all of us as we navigate our financial planning as well as our estate planning for business and for personal?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it. We do a lot of estate planning, obviously, as well as the financial planning for our clients. And a story that I think is a great way to showcase what we do is this wonderful couple that we met back in, I want to say 2015. They came in for a consultation. So they are certainly a wonderful couple, blended family. So second marriage for both of them. He has children and she does not. Basically, they were saying to me, Meritess, I really want my estate plan to be secure. I want it to be ironclad so it goes to the right people. Particularly the wife was concerned that this money goes to her charities, which she was very, very active in and volunteers quite a bit. She puts her hard-earned money with them. And she also wants to make sure her husband is taken care of as well. So she wanted to do both objectives at the same time. We were like, of course we can help you with that. We want to make sure that we write everything down and just like you said, make it ironclad so that there's no contest. There's nobody trying to get to the money inappropriately. Right. So we've created a wonderful estate plan for them. So that was 2015. Now, sadly, she unexpectedly passed a few years later. and her surviving spouse came to us, and he really needed help. He was so, of course, distraught and super, super sad. But he was also very concerned about the financial pieces. He wasn't that familiar with financial instruments. There was 13, 14, 15 accounts that she had. And of course, he was like, I'm confused. What do I do with all of this? So we said, okay, we're going to take care of you. We got this. And we were able to really take a hold of all those instruments and all those accounts. And on our financial side of our business, we were able to consolidate them, invest it in very prudent investments, and make sure it's easy for him to manage. So we were able to do that within 3 to 6 months. His late wife's wishes of him being able to live on that money and then eventually at his death give it to her charities is exactly what's going to happen. So wonderful to be able to plan it properly, give her peace of mind. A few years later, we're honoring 100% of her wishes. This money is not going to go to anybody inappropriately. And her beneficiaries, her charities, are going to be so happy to be able to get this money upon his death, because he is still able to live on that income. So I love those stories, because to me, we work so hard. We sacrifice daily, right? We work so hard, and we want to be able to take our money and be able to give it to people that we love and charities that we believe in.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I always enjoy spending time with you. And yeah, you're one of the people I always find so much value in talking to. You're just walking integrity, and you're a good soul, and you help people. You help people. So thank you for being on the show again, and for sharing with us, and for always doing such a great job for everybody. And now that you're able to do even more and be more of a one-stop shop to help people with all these different issues, I think your company and you are even more valuable. Thank you so much. Always lovely to see you. Marites Bott and Associates. If it's something that you need, be sure and contact Marites right away. Thank you.